So I met Steve, it must be over a decade ago, when I was working at the shelter, and Steve was staying there, and we got really close, and I learned that Steve was an auto mechanic. That was his career, his passion. And I was buying a really cheap car on Craigslist one day, and I invited Steve to come with me to check it out. So we were driving this old, rusted out Subaru Outback, and he told me to throw on the brakes, just brakes all the way to the floor. And I was like, really? Like, are you sure? He's like, look, if it doesn't work now, it's not going to work in the future. And I was like, huh, that's sound advice. So threw the brakes to the floor, the car stopped as it was supposed to, and I walked away with like a $1,200 car. And Steve and I have stayed close ever since then. When tiny homes started, we got applicants all the time, and eventually one came in with Steve's name on it. And I knew he'd be a perfect tenant here. So he moved in a couple of years ago, fit right in immediately. Really took advantage of his own place, got really close with the other guys in the Bellevue community, and was doing great for a year until one evening I got a call from Steve and could barely understand a word he said. Barely understand a word. So drove over, and I found him on the floor, and Steve had a stroke. And it was touch and go for a while at the rehab facility. The amount he would be able to get back to his normal self. And after a year in rehab, he contracted COVID while there. He just had a really, really long stretch there. He was finally discharged. And they hemmed and hawed over where to send him, whether it be a long-term care facility. But I think very much thanks to this housing that he's in now, he was able to come back here. So there's no roommate situation. His rent was fixed in one place. He had already developed a really strong connection with the other tenants here at Bellevue. So thanks to our staff, some of Steve's family, we're able to hook him up with a long-term nurse. So 5 days a week, Steve has a nurse who comes and checks in on him, makes sure he's healthy, make sure the house is still serving him, and he's right back into this community.
When Steve moved in, he was ready, able, and willing to go, and wanted to get involved in everything, as far as taking care of the lawns, taking care of the weed whacking, taking care of the garbage, keeping a good house. And then he had a stroke, and it knocked the hell out of him. And I'm sorry to see that happen, but it hasn't changed his personality. He's still Stevens. He's still Steve there, and I can appreciate that. He's a good neighbor. I wouldn't trade him for anybody else, to put it that way.